for example, or they might have even known but forgot to put that connection in that circumstance. So you'll see people that literally go out and post stuff like, oh man, the Houthis are actually the bad guys, or maybe hold on, sorry. Implementing a blockade on the Red Sea for as long as America's actions, unjustifiable actions continue, is morally just.
Potential major escalation in the Red Sea.
If we had any balls, we would be doing it. If we had any balls, we would be doing it. If Turkey had any balls, they'd be doing it. It doesn't have to be violent. Hasan speedrunning the L takes today, I see. How do you suggest? Gabe and Fan Club. For the people who keep saying these are L takes, these are L takes, these are L takes, how do you suggest countries can apply pressure to Israel to stop its ethnic cleansing? The first question is, do you think Israel is engaging in ethnic cleansing? I do, right? The second question is, how do you think countries can apply pressure to stop Israel in engaging ethnic cleansing? I genuinely want to understand your position. That's what I want to know. Sir, this is a Wendy's? Oh, God, you guys are so lame. Come on. No, he's not banned. He can reply.
And we did see a bit of a turning point last week when a U.S. official said, following the weeks and weeks of provocations and the attacks from the Houthis in the Red Sea on these shipping vessels, that they were essentially giving the last warning, that there would not be another warning. And so given that we have seen these attacks and these provocations continue, in some ways, we were very much preparing for a different kind of response from the U.S. and its allies. Again, we haven't gotten an official word from the White House, but Wolf, as Oren was saying, given the significance of this kind of action by the U.S. In Yemen, we should expect to hear from the president in some way tonight. Wolf.
A very significant development indeed. Colonel Layton, you're our military analyst. These strikes certainly do carry a real risk of escalation right now. Give us your reaction.
Yeah, Wolf, the big situation here with these strikes is that, first of all, they are going to hit some of the targets. As Oren mentioned, Hodeidah, the main port in western Yemen, is a highly likely target. There are a lot of anti-aircraft and anti-ship missiles that are located in that area. As far as the escalation, the possibilities of escalation are concerned, what can happen here is that the Houthis are going to respond.
You guys want to know what my biggest L take was? Time for an admission. My biggest L take was in the beginning of this process. There were military analysts that talked about how there could potentially be a six-front war. And I always ask the question, what do you mean a six-front war? Like what, the Houthis, the people of Yemen are going to attack Israel? Lol, with what power? I said that, okay? I undermined and underestimated what the Houthis were capable of, what Ansar Allah was capable of, okay? I said at the time, they're starving. They just withstood a blockade and genocide, okay? I said it. It turns out these guys, they don't mess around. They mean business. They don't care. They mean business. They stood on that. Yeah, I apologize. I wasn't familiar with the Houthis game. That's it.
Then make statements or put warships in the Red Sea to try to push back against the Houthis and make sure they don't threaten one of the world's most critical waterways. Again, that's what we're seeing here play out. The U.S. very much aware that there could be a risk of escalation with the Houthis. And because the Houthis are an Iranian proxy, you have to keep an eye on Iran to see their reaction to this, especially after the U.S. says they seized a tanker in the Gulf of Oman earlier today.
Yeah, very, very significant. Looks like this war, as I said, is escalating big time. And Colonel Layton, as you know, this aircraft carrier battle group has a lot of warplanes ready to go if given the order. What do you think? How likely is this next step going to be taking place?
I think it's highly likely, Wolf, and I think the warplanes that you mentioned, primarily F-18 fighters on board the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, they are going to be used to strike targets that are more complex than what you would normally strike with a Tomahawk missile. Some of the areas that they might strike would include radar installations. They will also probably go after some of the command and control nodes that the Houthis have. So that is basically what we're looking at here. I think, a lot of activity in the northern part of Yemen and in the western part, which are the areas that the Houthis currently control.
I want to bring in CNN's chief national security correspondent, Alex Marquardt. He's getting more information. Tell us more about the U.S. allies, their involvement in what's going on. Alex.
Well, Wolf, it was a major consideration in carrying out the military operation that we are now seeing unfold, that the U.S. not do this alone. There is a belief that the British would also have a hand in this, and potentially others as well. The U.S. really wanted to have global support when it came to retaliating against the Houthi rebels in Yemen. You have this coalition of 22 countries, Operation Prosperity Guardian, that was set up late last year in order to protect ships in the Red Sea. And then just last week, the U.S. and other countries warning of consequences to the Houthis if they continue to carry out attacks against commercial shipping in the Red Sea. That was a warning that was issued by the White House alongside 11 other countries. Wolf, there was a real sense that this was imminent as soon as that statement was put out. A senior administration official saying that there would not be another warning. We have seen several attempted attacks and attacks by the Houthis in the past few days, and here we are seeing the response. So as Oren and the Colonel have been alluding to, the question now is what do the Houthis do? What does Iran do in reaction to tonight's strikes? We heard from a senior Houthi leader just earlier today who said that they would confront America and make it kneel down. I've been told by numerous U.S. officials that it is clear that Iran's hand is clear in all of these operations and attacks that the Houthis carry out. So, of course, there's a real concern over what Iran will do here. I will tell you, the U.S. officials don't think that Iran necessarily wants to escalate and open up any kind of full-scale war or major front with Iran, but they're certainly eager to stir the pot. So what we're seeing here now is an attempt to de-escalate the situation, essentially give the Houthis a bloody nose and give them a message to back down and stop carrying out these operations.
America only knows how to de-escalate a situation by blowing up, like, actual soil. They're blowing up Yemeni soil.
And it comes as the Defense Secretary,
That's
Lloyd
what this
Austin,
fucking
is apparently
asshole
still in the
just said.
hospital. Update us on that and the connection, if any, to what's going on.
He very much remains in the hospital at this point. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin has been there since January 1st, so 10 days and no expectation that he's going to be released in the coming hours,
love that.
perhaps not even in the coming days.
Guys, you don't understand. This is a de-escalatory bombing, okay? Like, this is a de-escalatory top-of-the-hour ad break. My goal is to de-escalate. Just kidding. I'm escalating the top of the hour ad break. However, you can subscribe and avoid it, regardless. That was an insane point of manufacturing consent, right? You saw that. I'm glad that you saw that. It happened in real time. What this will do is escalate. The Houthis will likely fire on all ships crossing in the Red Sea, possibly fire on U.S. bases in Saudi Arabia and UAE. Yes. And it seems like people are saying that maybe Iraq is also taking a hit. Like, our American bases in Iraq are being attacked right now. Our militias is what someone was saying in the chat. I'm not entirely sure, but we'll see.
So there's new development in the region. Very significant indeed, guys. Thank you very much. And to our viewers, thanks very much for watching. Aaron Burnett Out Front starts right now.
Out front next, the breaking news: U.S. airstrikes in the Middle East tonight. U.S. fighter jets right now striking parts of Yemen with Tomahawk missiles. We are waiting to hear directly from President Biden as the entire Middle East and the world right now are on edge. And more breaking news tonight: Trump's tirade, a judge shutting the former president down after an outburst at his fraud trial in New York. Could this be the beginning of the end for Trump's business empire? And Christie's hot mic moment that everyone's been talking about. We have the man Who was on the other end? Who was speaking to Christie on that mic? What else did he say? Was it really an accident? Let's go out front.
Here's the minute break now.
Hour, a U.S. official telling CNN that right now the U.S. military is carrying out strikes with fighter jets and Tomahawk missiles on Yemen. Their target, Iranian-backed militia Houthis. And these strikes come after...
They keep saying Iranian-backed militia Houthis. Just say, like, the people of Yemen, man.
To be clear, these strikes in the Middle East are very significant. The United States is now finally taking action, and it could change the Israel-Hamas war into something...
We don't say America-backed Israel.
These have been relentlessly attacking ships in the Red Sea since November. Reports today of another attack, the 27th by the group in the area under 2 months, according to the Pentagon. Now, the Houthis are already vowing to retaliate to any strikes. A senior member moments ago saying, and I quote, "We will confront America, make it kneel down and burn its battleships and all its bases and everyone who cooperates with it, no matter the cost." And as we said, a very significant moment here, the United States launching multiple strikes in Yemen tonight. So much to get to with this breaking development. I want to start with MJ Lee out front live outside the White House. And MJ, a tense situation tonight. It is, of course, the darkest hours of the night, just coming before dawn in Yemen, and now a series of strikes. What are you learning?
Yeah, Aaron, we are certainly waiting for that official word from the White House on these attacks in Yemen against these Houthi positions. But U.S. official telling me and confirming that this isn't just the U.S. military, but these are actions that are being taken with other countries, including the U.K. What we should make clear is that U.S. officials have telecast in recent days very clearly that the situation in the Red Sea had become intolerable and unacceptable. And in recent days, U.S. officials had gone as far as to say that they were issuing their final warnings to the Houthi. So it was certainly expected that in the coming days, given that the Houthi provocations and the attacks had continued on these shipping vessels in the Red Sea, that some kind of a different response could be coming again from the U.S. And its allies. Now, striking in Yemen is something that the U.S. had hoped that it could very much avoid. This was almost a last resort situation, given that the U.S. is so set on trying to prevent the situation in the Middle East from escalating. They also just do not want to disturb the current truce in the Yemen civil war. But again, I think it's very much expected, given the gravity of the situation and the significance of this action by the U.S. and others, that we should be hearing in some form from the president directly later this evening, Aaron.
All right. Thank you very much, MJ Lee. And you heard MJ say in some form we should hear from the president later this evening. It is a grave and deeply serious moment and a significant development here. And as MJ said, indications allies involved. I mentioned that emergency cabinet meeting in the darkness of night in London, Rishi Sunak holding, and we do understand now that the UK was part of these strikes. Oren Lieberman joins me now from the Pentagon. And Oren, you're learning about the UK involvement. What more are you learning about these strikes tonight?
We've just learned quite a bit from a U.S. official about the types of targets that were struck here by the U.S., and we've now just learned the U.K. We have also learned that the U.S. strikes came from a variety of different platforms, including, as we've said, fighter jets and Tomahawk missiles, which are land attack missiles launched from the sea. But it's not just surface vessels. It was also submarines that were used in part of this attack, targeting 12 or more than 12, I should say, different sites in Yemen belonging to the Houthis. Those targets included radar sites, as well as storage and launch sites for ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and UAVs. That's significant because it's those three types of weapons that the Houthis have used to target international shipping in the Red Sea, obviously one of the world's most critical waterways. So the U.S. and the U.K. very much trying to send a message here that this needs to stop. We have seen, according to the U.S., 27 times where the Houthis have launched attacks on shipping in the Red Sea. At first, they were trying to target ships that had some sort of connection to Israel, either coming or going from, or part ownership. But according to the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet, which operates in the region, many of the last dozen attacks had no connection at all to Israel. The U.S. feeling compelled, because of the threats to international shipping, to set up Operation Prosperity Guardian and protect shipping in the Red Sea. But that was purely defensive. This obviously goes well beyond that. After multiple warnings to both the Houthis and to Iran, the Houthis...
Wait, what? I thought that was also defensive. I thought America only engages in defensive posturing.
The UK feeling compelled to take action here. So
you
again,
said earlier that this was a bloody nose, a de-escalatory tomahawk.
As well as storage and launch platforms and sites for ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and UAVs, and the U.S. using not just fighter jets, but also surface ships and submarines to carry out what appears to be a broad array of strikes on Houthi targets in Yemen. Aaron.
All right, a broad assault. Oren, thank you very much. And always important to note, 90% of the world's trade goes by ship. And these attacks have gone unanswered now for 3 months until this mass assault, this broad assault that we're talking about happening at this hour. Barak Ravid is our political and global affairs analyst, and retired U.S. Army Major General James Spider Marks also joins me. So, General, here we are, finally, 27 strikes on shipping, many of them U.S. ships targeted. The U.S. now tonight responding, hitting more than a dozen Houthi targets in Yemen. The Houthis, of course, an Iranian-backed militia, Iranian proxy. And coming from the air, coming from under the sea, coming from ships on the sea. Your reaction?
I think it's well overdue. The timing of this is important. The United States has previously been very, very precise in its attack against the Houthis. It's kind of been a tit for tat. This is an escalation, and I think that's appropriate. It's not an expansion. Look, there's proportionality, legal requirements that I think this would exceed, certainly at a minimum, would meet those prescriptions for proportionality. And you have to go after, as Oren has just reported, both the archers as well as the arrows in military terms. Go after the inventory, go after the capabilities, go after the leadership, go after the launch capabilities as well. That's what we're seeing right now. And important, the message needs to be there's no sanctuary for the Houthis where they are in Yemen. The only sanctuary that exists is within the border of Iran. Nobody's going to conduct operations across the border into Iran. But the Houthis need to understand, unacceptable, this needs to be a crushing blow.
Well, that's the crucial question, Barak. Is it a crushing blow? Obviously, there's a statement being made in the fact that there's
Bro, this is literally Israel.
UK's involved, and it's more than a dozen targets, and it's
They're about to be like, the Houthis are using civilian shields, and that's why we had to kill thousands of people in Yemen.
Be received.
Well, it's definitely not a crushing blow. It's a beginning. It's a first step. You don't crush a strong militia like the Houthis with airstrikes on 10 targets around the country. They have a robust military infrastructure all over the countries with vast military capabilities, and they're going to respond. It's pretty clear. They said that they're going to respond. They will do it. And now the question is, how far will they go? Will they just attack U.S. vessels in the Red Sea, or are they going to start attacking U.S. forces in the region?
And General, that's the question here. So the statement from the senior member of the Houthis tonight, and this statement came just before we learned the strikes were launched. So there was anticipation that it was going to happen. We knew about the cabinet meeting. We knew it was imminent. And then they happened. The quote, "We will confront America, make it kneel down, and burn its battleships and all its bases and everyone who cooperates with it, no matter the cost." Now, of course, there's some bellicosity within that. But what are they really capable of doing?
Yeah, as you said, look, we're not surprised by any of that type of narrative that they would release. What we're seeing right now needs to be the first step in what must become a much larger type of engagement with the Houthis, or we're going to be here forever putting up with this. The planning that goes into these type of operations gets into what's known as an action, reaction, counteraction type scenario. So the United States and its allies that are participating have obviously gone through this. I don't see this as a potential snowballing out of control, or the United States and the UK wouldn't be there. There has to be able to be a very precise, as I've described, an initial crushing blow against the Houthis. And if they go after, and they've already indicated that they're going to go after U.S. forces.
Yes.
And there are other proxies that have gone after U.S. forces. So that's a given. We have to be able to put a lid on that.
The comment was made a moment ago, right, that there wouldn't be a strike within Iran, Barak, but that is the real question here, right? How will Iran react, right? The Houthis are an Iranian proxy. They are Iranian.
I love Aaron Burnett being like, can we attack Iran too, please?
An Iranian proxy, they're definitely Iranian-backed, but it's not clear that they are 100% Iranian-controlled, meaning it's not like an on-off switch that the Iranians can just tell them, okay, now you start shooting and now you stop shooting. Yeah. It's more complicated than that, and you have to add to that that for the Iranians, that's the best case scenario, that the Houthis and the U.S. will have those skirmishes now, and the Iranians will sit on the sidelines and as if they have nothing to do with it. And obviously, the U.S. tried in recent days to send messages to Iran to stop the Houthis. It didn't happen. And I'm not sure the U.S. is ready at the moment to go after Iran in order to stop this.
All right, please stay with me, both of you. I want to bring in Jason Crow, the Democratic congressman, former Army Ranger, who served in both Iraq and Afghanistan and sits on the Foreign Affairs Committee. So, Congressman, here we are.
I don't get why Axios reporter Barack Ravid is being asked about these questions.
The UK, we understand, against
you know what I mean?
This Iranian-backed militia. What more are you learning about these strikes tonight?
Hi, Aaron. Well, we're paying close attention to this on Capitol Hill. There's really three things going on here. The first is the president has the authority in the...
What's up, bro? Wait. Can you hear me? Ludwig is calling. Brother, America is currently attacking Yemen, and you're calling me in the middle of that. I suspect because you're doing a tier list or something. What's going on?
No.
Oh.
I didn't even know about this Yemen thing, by the way. I'm devastated, for starters. Second off, I was just wondering if you wanted to get dinner Saturday. I didn't even know you were live. I totally forgot.
Yeah, I do. All right. All right, bye.
Or that we don't let this escalate into a broader conflict, so that it's proportional, that it's controlled.
We're watching World War III.
We're looking very closely at what Iran is doing, and we're not creating an escalation here. Number three is Congress's role, making sure that this is a self-defense attack, that we're not being pulled into a broader conflict. I would not support us being pulled into a broader conflict against the Houthis. We should not be doing that. We just ended our nation's longest war. We should not be pulled into another one. So we have an obligation in the weeks ahead to conduct oversight on Capitol Hill.
You know, on the one hand, the Biden administration has been criticized for its tepid response, its lack of response to Houthi attacks, repeated attacks, more than 25 of them, right? 27, I believe, on shipping interests. On the other hand, you have the one of the chief operators of the Houthis saying, we will confront America, make it kneel down and burn its battleships tonight, as that statement coming out. Do you, Congressman, take that seriously? Do you think they have the ability to do any sort of an action that would cause...
What, dude, why is Aaron Burnett more serious than the congressperson? By the way, Elent News is right. Barack Ravid actually did provide better analysis than the fucking general did. It's still unique that, you know, you got a goddamn Axios reporter being like, doing commentary here, but like, again, the CNN reporter is always more reactionary than the most reactionary person.
That's why you have clear-eyed, smart, intelligence, national security professionals of the administration making sure that we are smart, that we have a proportionate response, that we are defending ourselves, but we're not escalating either. And that takes calculation, that takes intelligence, that takes the ability to look at the various streams of intelligence and risk that we are facing.
Chatters. Many of you always come in here when things are popping off and say, is this a distraction from this other thing? All of you, and just the general Western populations, basically has the attention span of a dog. You could just dangle keys in front of you and you would lose sight of whatever you were thinking about anyway. America doesn't need to start another front of war because of the International Court of Justice trials against Israel. No. They're doing this most likely because of what happened in Oman earlier today. Okay? They've been setting up for a counter against the Houthis, against Ansar Allah for some time now, due to, as Aaron Burnett correctly and I guess vociferously, bloodthirstily brought up, the 27 attacks against commerce interests. So there is no like distraction from one thing or the next. Okay? It is happening because of Israel, because of our endless support for Israel. Okay, that part is true. But the timing of this is suspicious is like my least favorite type of commentary.
And a submarine that carried out these strikes. We have learned more about the submarine. It is the USS Florida, a ballistic missile submarine capable of carrying out and firing Tomahawk missiles as well. Those are land attack missiles, and that, according to a U.S. official, is what was used in this attack. What's noteworthy here is that, first, the U.S. rarely talks about where its subs are. They're a very closely held secret. So anytime there's a public statement about them, it is a significant statement. And this is the sub that U.S. Central Command announced had entered the Red Sea from the Suez Canal in early November. So we now have learned that this is the submarine that has been there operating in the Red Sea, perhaps not all of this time, but that was a part of this strike using the Tomahawk missiles that's capable of launching as the U.S. carried out a strike along with the U.K. on more than a dozen or so targets in Yemen.
So sick, our weapons,
now, too,
bro.
we learn about the operations of a U.S. submarine as it relates to this very significant moment and this significant attack, Aaron.
Oren, thank you very much. And Barak Ravid, Major General Spider Marks are back with me in this significant moment with a significant attack, as Oren describes it, General. We've now learned that the USS Florida, that is the sub that was responsible for launching some of these Tomahawks. When you hear that and them releasing this information, sharing this information, saying the name of the vessel, what do you take away from it?
Well, attack subs, you have different manner of submarines. You've got boomers, those that are going to launch your ICBMs, your nuke capability. The Navy's never going to let you know where those babies are. The attack submarines, on the other hand, make themselves known. This is a very specific announcement by the Department of Defense saying we have capabilities, look at what they can do, very precise attack, and we're going to do some very significant bomb damage assessment in terms of what the damage was against the target. Was there any collateral damage as a result of that? And they'll alter their attack platform accordingly. This makes perfect sense when you look at all the array of capabilities that the DoD has available. They will use everything in their kit bag to make sure this happens.
And Barak, what's your understanding about the length of lead time they would have had to plan the time of this? And I say that in the context of, we know the UK is involved. We know there was a cabinet meeting, emergency all-cabinet meeting a few hours ago in London, led by Prime Minister Sunak, but that this was done in coordination, right? There were so many targets. What's your understanding about what went into it in terms of planning and how long they knew that they were going to do this at this time on this day?
I think this strike was planned for at least 2 to 3 weeks. I think the White House was very hesitant when the Pentagon first brought the initial plans for a military retaliation to what the Houthis have been doing since mid-November. And U.S. officials told me in recent days that what was important to the White House was first to try and mobilize some sort of an international coalition so that it won't be seen as the U.S. going at it alone, or even the U.S. and the U.K. And behind the U.S. and U.K. strike are at least 24 other countries that are involved in this task force in the Red Sea, and that signed.
I predict by the end of this week, there will be a not insignificant coalition of Globe Twitter that unironically whitewashes the genocide in Yemen in the hands of Saudi Arabia and justifies it as they learn about what it is, really, because they didn't know what it was already. Yeah, Globe Twitter. You will see think tank Andes, like that one Syrian guy who works for the American Enterprise Institute, and all of the other dudes with like globes in their profiles, and people who fancy themselves to be like sock dems and whatnot, totally go back and play the Saudi Arabia's actions in Yemen story in a way that unironically says, yeah, it was actually good that they did that. Okay, European Union flag, yeah. Oftentimes it's like, it's always like some Slav dude too. It's always like it's always one of those like European Union countries that gets like dunked on by the rest of the EU. You know what I mean? Always an Eastern European guy with the most genocidal opinions, defending and riding people who think he's a dog historically. You know what I mean?
Their intentions very, very clear. Nor should we be surprised by any declaration by the Houthis or by Iran, which means Israel now is at greater risk. I mean, this isn't a black swan event. This is a white swan swimming in a pond of white swans. This is totally predictable. Yeah. This needs to be done, and we understand the cost.
Barak, I want to play for you some video that we just have in of one of these strikes. Bro. Well, we're going to get it in a moment. I'll explain what it is, and we get it, I'll play it. But we do have video coming in of a strike Barak, north of Sana'a, of course, the capital of the Sana'a, Yemen, in the Sana'a province. So we're going to show that as soon as we get it. But that will show, here it is. So you go ahead and watch this, Barak, show that we actually have video of these.
Yeah, people are going to find out that the Houthis logo says, like, curse the Jews, and then they're going to repeat that, too. They're going to be like, it's anti-Semitic. Why are you defending anti-Semitism? I knew the left had a real problem with anti-Semitism. I didn't know how bad it was. Clip it. You'll see. Every single person is going to literally run these talking points in the next week. They do not know any of these things right now because they do not have a well-formed, informed opinion on the situation at all. You know, they're just learning about all of this now so they can hit you with talking points.
And you hear the dogs.
Whoa.
Yeah, I think what we'll have to see is how this looks in the morning. Meaning when the sun comes up, we'll be able to see exactly what was hit, how big is the damage, and we will also know if there are any casualties among the Houthis. Just last week, the U.S. helicopters fired at some small boats that the Houthis sent to try and kidnap a commercial ship. 10 Houthi rebels were killed. And the interesting question to me is whether the U.S. Did this airstrikes on targets that had Houthi militants in them, or it was just empty targets that only had weapon caches or missile positions. And I think this is a big, big question because this will determine
civilians.
What will be the Houthi response to this.
General Marks, what do you see in this video that we have taken from the ground in the distance looking at, it's hard to say, right? It's multiple plumes of fire, looks like multiple explosions lighting up the sky. But what do you see when you watch this?
Yeah, to Barak's comment, that looks like these are secondary explosions. That's significant. Frankly, if there aren't any Houthi fighters co-located with where those ammunition depots might be, or some of their capabilities might be located, I'm okay with that. Let's get rid of all of their inventory so that they have a much diluted capacity.
I'm sorry, but like, that's a whole different country, man. Like, is it okay if people start blowing up like random parts of America because there's ammo depots there? Like, what are we talking about? You can't do that. Like, you're America, okay? You are the United States of America. You're like 8,000 miles away from this area. And you've decided, like, I'm going to blow up your weapons depot. Like, this makes no sense. Just did it, Bubba. I know it makes a lot of people's dicks hard to think like, oh, they're doing this and we're showing our might towards a population of people that we had been doing we had been genociding basically, and not directly genociding, indirectly genociding with a regional proxy. Like, we outsourced our genocide of the Yemeni population to Saudi Arabia, okay? But it blows my mind. Like, it blows my mind that like Americans champion this kind of thing. You get no benefits from this, dog. They're not even doing this for your security. They're doing this to flex for Israel, basically. So it's additionally odd when Americans are like, lol, they're going to find out why we don't have healthcare. And it's like, bro, you really think that's chill? You just said it's cool that you don't have healthcare because America gets to aid and abet in genocide. Like, you think that's fun? You think that's a good thing? You just basically posted your L publicly. You are no different than like the dumbass hogs that we make fun of every day.
The scale and scope of the U.S. and U.K. operation here, and perhaps other countries participating as well.
Right. And important what you say there. We don't know other countries at this point, if so, who. And we also don't know, at least as far as I understand, Oren, correct me if I'm wrong, the exact number of targets. We know more than a dozen, but that's the description at this point. I just want to follow up with you on a couple points, and also with Barak and the general. But You talk about the specificity of these strikes, and it looks like those could be secondary explosions indicating that they had hit some sort of weapons depot or something along those lines, Oren. How good is the U.S. intel? When you're striking more than a dozen precise targets, it would indicate it is very
Why do you
good.
care?
Is that right? Do they feel that they really know where every single thing is there?
Certainly, we'll get a better sense of that if and when we get briefed by senior administration officials, and then hopefully at some point U.S. Central Command, to understand how they knew what they were going for. Monitoring it, the U.S. has known this is a potential flashpoint. It's also worth noting that because this is a multinational operation, the U.S., UK, and perhaps others, there is the potential of sharing intel, and that shores up what you're able to know and gives as many sort of input feeds into the intel picture as you can get. The U.S. has obviously worked sort of both on and off with the Saudis, as they had a years-long war with the Houthis. So there is certainly knowledge of the capabilities that the Houthis have, and that perhaps gave them a picture of where exactly the Houthis have it to know where to strike. Obviously, the U.S. has all sorts of other ways of gathering intelligence, from satellite to signals intelligence. So these are all feeding into the picture here. And then in the course of the next hours and days, we'll get a better sense of what they hit, what they didn't hit, perhaps. Of course, intel is imperfect and it has holes in it and gaps in it, so we'll get a better picture of that. But these are all questions as we see the first videos of these explosions here.
And as we're watching this, when you talk about, we'll find out what they did hit and what they didn't hit, Barak Ravid, let me ask you about that, because you had indicated that even if we're talking about more than a dozen strikes, and I understand that that is not as precise as many viewers may want to hear, it's not as precise as we want more information, but that's what we have right now, that would, you didn't use the word tip of the iceberg, but you did seem to indicate that that's a little bit, there's a lot. Can you contextualize this as everyone tries to understand this war? This is a significant strike, it's a significant step, but as it could escalate, how much more is there?
Yeah, I think there's much more. Again, the Houthis are a well-equipped, well-trained militia. They have, I think, equipment that only several non-state actors around the world have. Maybe the other actor is Hezbollah in Lebanon. Both of them are supported and backed by...
Yeah, because they're state actors.
I think just an interesting update, because President Biden just issued a statement about this airstrike. And he said there's something interesting, that while the U.S. and the U.K. were the ones who actually conducted the strike,
they're the state actors.
They had support of several kinds of support from Australia, Bahrain, Canada, and the Netherlands, something that we did not know.
People are always shocked when they find out that the Hezbollah literally has a party. Hezbollah isn't a state actor? I mean, it is. Hezbollah is. It is. They have fiber. They deal with matters of civil governance. Okay? They have fiber. I don't. Okay? I'm sorry. That's ridiculous.
There will be some damage that was absolutely spot on, and there will be misses in this attack, which means that you're going to be there for a while.
Yeah, there's a common joke in Lebanon. The Lebanese army is the second strongest army in all of Lebanon, referring to Hezbollah. Lol. Exactly.
That's important. And not every one of those needs to be a shooter. Look, when you have operations like this, you have folks that have to support, they have to watch your...
Same with Ansar Allah. Like, the reason why the Houthis, the reason why they say, oh, the Houthis or Ansar Allah sometimes, or like, and not Yemen and Yemeni state, is because a part of the reason why this conflict is occurring in Yemen, or the genocide that occurred in Yemen, is because the Saudi-backed government has been in contest against the Houthis, against Ansar Allah, which is part of the reason why they are saying that Yemen is actually not a state actor, except the Saudi-backed, they're an ethnic group too. The Saudi-backed state actor, on the other hand, is not even operating inside of the boundaries of Yemen. The Houthis are.
Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. That's part of this as well. It gives international legitimacy to the need to protect international shipping, and if the threat continues, to respond to that threat. And that's what the U.S. is trying to do here. Not start a war with the Houthis, but try to send a message that these attacks have to stop. It's a message not just directed at the Houthis, but also one directed at Iran, as we see them seize another vessel earlier today, according to both the U.S. and Iranian media. It is that threat to commercial shipping that has been one of the big goals here, because it's such a critical waterway. The U.S. was looking for, and as we learn now, got international backing for how critical of a threat this was, backing this action tonight by the U.S. and the U.K.
General, you've talked about how obviously there are threats to burn battleships and burn U.S. bases. Express that as a bit of hyperbole. And certainly we've seen, obviously, them launch missiles at ships, right, that have been repelled by U.S. air defense. But have we seen their full capability in the context of what we know and what Barack is speaking of, that they have the capability that they and perhaps only Hezbollah have as non-state actors?
Yeah, they have some tremendous capabilities. So we've seen those.
By the way, it's such a funny thing to conduct yourselves like this while you are doing quote unquote journalism. But like, does not a single individual that watches CNN ask the question, so why are these non-state actors blowing up ships and stuff? Like, why are they taking over ships? What's the reason? Is there a reason? Like, all it takes is a crumb of intellectual curiosity. If you think the Houthi did all the bombing ships because of Gaza, do you think North Korea bombing South Korean territory from artillery in last days was because of Gaza too, or is that just a coincidence? Brother, I'm sorry, but you are desperately trying to change the subject to completely irrelevant points. Like, one is directly a regional power player that is aligned with the group of individuals who they are demonstrating their might for. The other has absolutely nothing to do with Gaza. I don't know why. I'm sorry. I find it really strange that you think this is a good counter argument. Like, what are you talking about, dude? Bro, I swear, if you ask like the average Ansar Allah dude, or like a dude in Gaza, if you found like a dude that is a Hamas operative, like, what do you think about North Korea? They'd probably be like, I don't know. What the fuck do I care about North Korea? What are you saying? You have to be so permanently American brain to think that like all of our foreign adversaries are basically operating in unison. To make this comparison between the Houthis or Ansar Allah or Yemen and North Korea is a cowardly way of trying to argue, because you have no counter to what I have to say. That's a reach. That, like, there's a difference between Yemen, the Red Sea, okay, and also North Korea and South Korea. What are you talking about? Not every conflict has everything to do with one another. This one does. What are you talking? Dude, is South Korea Israel? Here is why it doesn't, what you're saying doesn't make sense. Because South Korea is not Israel. Israel is Israel. Yemen stopping commerce in the Red Sea is directly impacting Israel. North Korea is not a part of the like, even if the argument you're trying to make is like, well, this is the axis of evil, you're pulling a George W. Bush in 2001 axis of evil argument by trying to add North Korea onto the pile. There's a direct connection between Houthis and Israel. There is no direct connection between the Houthis, between North Korea and Israel. What are you talking about? It's so stupid.
Which the president says these attacks by the Houthis have endangered U.S. personnel, civilian mariners, and other partners, jeopardized trade.
They've been pirating commerce ship for a long time there. It didn't start this
navigation.
month. Why didn't the U.S. drop a bomb on Yemen before then? No, they've never done it to this degree. No, that's not true. Yemen has never, as far as I know, they've never had to institute a blockade or implemented a blockade this strict blockade at all. Brother, they were also directly being genocided. They were the ones who were under a blockade by Saudi Arabia and coalition forces in the region that caused the worst instance of famine. I tweeted it, but like a decade ago, my final research project was about Yemen and how the U.S. has facilitated a war against it. And my professor asked me to help him grade final papers and stay after class so we could ask me more the whole time about the conflict because he had no idea it existed. He was a very old and progressive dude, too. Even though he cared, Americans have no clue about this shit. It's going to be ugly this week online. Yeah, but when they find out about it, they're going to... Here's how it always goes, intelligent. Okay? The Hudsons are out today, okay? The Hudsons are out in full force in the chat today. Episode's one very own intelligent. Listen, the thing is, Americans don't really think too much about this sort of stuff, but they have like foundational principles that they base their worldview off of. And I don't mean like real moral principles. I'm talking specifically like America good, brown guy bad, that sort of thing. So what I think usually ends up happening, and I assume your professor was actually open-minded, but what usually ends up happening in a situation like this, as far as I've seen, is they go and the ones that want to chirp and like come across as intelligent in matters such as foreign policy like this, the ones that want to come across as intelligent will decide like who is America backing in this war? Is it directly something that America is doing? And then they work their way from the conclusion that America's actions are just, moral, and permissible and very good. So that's why I said, like, what a lot of people are going to do in the upcoming week is find ways in which, like, how the Houthis are wrong. He was very kind and was concerned about it, but yeah, you're 100% right. You will see people who may not even realize that they fake supported stopping the genocide in Yemen, because who was doing the genocide in Yemen? Saudi Arabia. They might not have even known that it was actually Saudi Arabia that was doing it with America's weapons, for example. Or they might have even known but forgot to put that connection in that circumstance. So you'll see people that literally go out and post stuff like, oh man, the Houthis are actually the bad guys, or maybe even try to justify the genocide that happened prior, right? In an effort to normalize the violence that the Houthis are being subjected to now. Okay, they started doing it already by talking about the average age of marriage of Yemeni girls. Oh, there you go. See, look. Like, let's be real. I'm assuming this guy was in the chat earlier when I said this already, but it started already. Look, you see, like clockwork. I told you. I didn't think it was going to happen this quickly. I thought that it was going to happen in like a week. You know what I mean? I did not realize it would be that fast. Wow, Intel Spirit, let's nuke this third world poorest country in the world. Great intel. No, my statement is their slogan doesn't matter. Okay? Their slogan is irrelevant. I don't care. Okay? What they're doing, they have directly and openly stated. They're doing this because of Israel's actions in Gaza, and the blockade that they've, hastily put together will stop when Israel stops. Okay? Their cause is just as it pertains to implementing a blockade in the Red Sea. I told you. I hope that makes sense for you.
At the beginning, that when they started firing at ships in the Bab el-Mandeb, in the Red Sea, in the crossing there, it was ships that had some sort of an even vague affiliation with Israel, but then they just started firing at any ship, even if it had nothing to do with Israel. And I think that shown to everybody that, you know, Gaza was just an excuse for the Houthis, and that there's a much bigger picture here. And, you know, if we can talk for a few seconds about this big picture. You know, the war in Gaza is between Israel and Hamas.
President official says target said chosen was toward higher end.
Iran. We see tensions between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hezbollah is backed by Iran. We saw a rocket fire from Syria towards Israel by pro-Iranian militias, and we have the Houthis who are also backed by Iran. There's a common denominator here, and this common denominator here right now sits in Tehran, eats popcorn, and enjoying the show.
And I want to bring in Jeremy Diamond, who is live in Tel Aviv for us tonight. Of course, the heart and center of all of this, and why we are here with these strikes tonight. So, Jeremy, what are you learning about the Israeli response, and I guess what their readiness is? I don't understand that from Oren's reporting that they were given a heads up. I'm sorry, Barak's reporting that they were given a heads up, that they were aware that this was going to happen.
Wait.
But nonetheless, this, of course, puts Tel Aviv, where you are, directly.
Wait, does this mean that Biden gave Israel knowledge ahead of time that this was going to happen, but not Congress? Please. Are the reports true that Congress was not informed about this? Because if that's the case, I'm going to lose my mind. These airstrikes have not been authorized by Congress. The Constitution is clear. Congress has the sole authority to authorize military involvement in overseas conflicts. Oh, my God.
Launched that very significant barrage of missiles and drones at that shipping lane in the Red Sea, prompting the United States and Britain to intercept nearly 24 of those projectiles aimed there. I think it has been clear since those attacks happened, and in the wake of the warnings from the Secretary of State, that there was going to be some kind of a significant U.S. response. And
Bro, is he out of his mind? This is like, if Donald Trump did this, every American organ of media would be losing their minds, okay? That's nuts. There you go. Allahu Akbar, death to America, death to Israel, cursed be the Jews, victor to Islam. They have the self-awareness of cartoon villains, but they're no laughing matter. Bro, this guy should be in jail. If England was a real country, you would arrest this fucking terrorist criminal piece of shit who came back on British soil for being a genocidaire, for being an acting representative of a genocide. But because the entire island is a bunch of morally bankrupt Tory pedophiles, obviously not the good British people, I'm talking about specifically the conservatives, okay? None of the English politicians sitting in the parliament have the decency to implement at least the same scrutiny that you would have for a Muslim person that went to a Muslim country and then came back. It's disgusting. Yeah, it started. No shot. Anyone thinks the Houthis who starved an entire city and brought back slavery are good, might as well simp for Janjaweed. Houthis starved and sieged 37,000 people in Abdia, by the way. Dude, I'm telling you, it's coming. Just wait, dude. It's coming. I'm telling you. It's going to turn into, actually, what Saudi Arabia was doing was good. I'm telling you. What Saudi Arabia was doing was actually good in Yemen is what it's going to turn into. Just wait. Whataboutism works for Israel too then, Hasan? Yeah, no, totally. Congress leaders were reportedly informed by Biden, according to Huffington Post. New Biden administration has told leaders in Congress there will be U.S.-UK airstrikes in Yemen tonight per U.S. official. So what happened? Like the Ro Khannas of the world didn't hear about it? Like a couple, all the... Joe Biden only told some people in Congress, not the people he doesn't think are cool with it. Problem is, who voted for it? Yeah. How'd that work? Because they hit us first. They hit U.S. first in international waters. I feel like there's still a rules of engagement. Or I guess, yeah, there's already troops deployed. Why do you think politics happens in a vacuum? Also, why do you keep defending terrorists? I've never defended the United States of America. I have not defended the United States of America, nor the criminal state of Israel. Both the United States of America and the Israeli state are war criminals and engage in acts of terror. They are the largest state sponsors of terror. They dish it out on their own as well. I've never defended them. So how dare you come in here and tell me that I'm defending terrorists? Updates on what the Houthis are saying via Yemeni media. The Houthi TV of Al Mazira reported that the strikes targeted Al Dailami air base in the capital Sana'a, vicinity of the Hodeidah airport, and other targets in Zabid in the province of Hodeidah, Kahlan military camp in Saada. Local sources reported strikes in Taiz and Dohamar. Houthi leaders said their forces are attacking the U.S. and U.K. warships in the Red Sea. It also reported that the strikes hit the military airports in the Hajj province. It also it hit the Taiz airport and the 22 military camp in the province of Taiz, or no, province of Hodeidah. United States is one of the largest perpetrators of terrorism. What is the line between terrorism and warfare? Can you have war without acts of terror? No. War is terror. I guess the legality of it is that they're not actually committing new soldiers. They're not deploying new soldiers. This is just existing soldiers in the region. Right? Hamas calls cap on the Holocaust and not liking Jews is what? What is this guy saying? I'm